Podcast with Joey Holley. Joey, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Hi, Gal. How are you this morning?
I'm doing amazing. It's an honor to have you here. We've kind of known each other for a bit. I've wanted to have you on for a while, so I'm glad that you're here. Why don't you let everybody first know where your store is? I always like to kind of talk about the interest and the hold period.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for asking me to be a part of your podcast. I've listened to it several times and I enjoy the conversations you have with other pawnbrokers, and I was honored to be asked to be here. We are in Troy, Alabama. The name of the shop's Pawn Express. We are a 25% interest state. I've been here at this location for 13 years now. I worked for my business partner for about 5 years before we had an agreement. When I first started working for him, I wanted to go in business for myself. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I wanted to be in business for myself at some point. And he says, well, that sounds great. I look to expand at some point, and I would, if things work out, I'd love to have you as part of my organization. And I guess you can say the rest is history.
Nice. You want to hear something funny? We have things in common. The name of my family's pawn shop is Express Pawn, so that's pretty cool. Joey, so you're out there, 25% state. So tell us kind of how things have been for you. I know that you're very well respected in the industry. I think that it's because you're just a good human being. You tell it like it is. Tell us kind of like what's created the success for Pawn Express, as well as what's been tough in running a pawn shop.
Yeah, when we first opened this shop, one of my key goals was to focus on the customer, to focus on meeting their needs, exceeding their needs, and trying to help them as much as possible. And we have grown and built a strong rapport with most of our customers. We have VIP programs where we take care of those customers that come in, not just our retail customers, but those customers that get those loans. And it's not just the big loans. We've got some VIP customers that their biggest loan they've ever taken out is $80, but they're still our VIP customers, and we really take care of those. As far as things that have been tough, just pawn shop in general. Most of the guys that listen to this podcast are pawnbrokers anyway, and it's just the pawn shop in general. When I say that our biggest goal was to really take care of the customer, some days it's hard to take care of our customers. And we all slip, we all get a little upset with those guys, but that's one of the things that we really work on with our culture is to try to put yourself in their shoes. What if you had to borrow $20 to get you to the next paycheck? Most of my employees, some of them have, but most of my employees have never had that where I just need $20 for 3 days just to get me to my next paycheck. And I tell my guys, a lot of our customers are like that. That's why they come in here and ask them for that $20, that $50, that $100, whatever the case may be. They really need that to get them to the next paycheck and to put yourself in their shoes. So that's one of the hardest things.
So it's basically being empathetic, right? Not just thinking about the bottom line, but being empathetic about the customer and saying, man, they're coming in needing $10, $20, $30. Some of us have never felt that.
That's right.
And so how do we deal with them in a way that makes them feel good and makes them coming back without judgment or shame?
That's right. That's right. And I tell most of my employees when I hire them, in this industry, you will meet some of the poorest people in our city, and you will meet some of the richest people in our city. And we really have to learn to treat them exactly the same.
I love that, man, because you've got the people who don't have the funds coming in for a loan. You've got the people who are buying a $5,000 diamond bracelet all in one shop, all together. And what's funny is a lot of people don't think about that, right? They're two different avatars, two different customers, yet to treat the person who needs money like the rich and to treat everybody the same is kind of what's created the success for Pawn Express and you guys.
Yes.
I love that, man. So how are things been, 2020 hit, pandemic, things, were kind of like turned upside down. Everyone's pawn balances went, plummeting, sales increased, guns, ammo. What did you guys do to keep hold of the business or to just have a positive attitude during that time period?
Well, our circumstance was a little unique, and back April 2019, I tell everybody that I've been practicing to wear a mask and a social distance for about 2 years now. Everybody else has got about a year. I've got about 2 years under my belt now. Back in April 2019, I was diagnosed with leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia. I had to go in and have really aggressive chemo treatments, of which, took my immune system away from me. So I had to wear a mask pretty much all the time. Well, about the time that I was getting over, I had my stem cell transplant, and about the time I was getting over that, trying to get back into work, the dreaded COVID hit. So now I'm, isolating myself, because at that time it was full blown panic, and nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew anything about this virus. And I've always been that guy. I'm gung ho. I'm going to, do whatever I have to do to make things happen, especially with my business. And, I wanted to be here, but, with doctors and employees and family, hey, you can't be here. You can't be here. So I had to learn to manage from afar. I know it's hard to say you can manage a pawn shop, over the computer and virtually. But I had to learn to do some of that. And some of that was easy, because when I first was diagnosed, I had to drop everything within 3 days and go to the hospital. And that's one of the things that I kind of want to, I know I'm rabbit holing and getting away from the question, but I hope I can circle back to it. One of the things that I had to learn about myself is it's okay to let somebody else be in control.
I love that.
I had to drop everything, like I say, within a 3-day period. And one of the things that I would like to stress to pawnbrokers out there: make sure somebody in your organization can do what you do. If it's not one person that does what you do, pick 3 people, pick 5 people, and teach them to do the individual things that you do. But make sure somebody in your organization knows how to do what you do, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when you're going to have to just drop everything and leave. And if somebody in your organization can't do what you do, your business is going to suffer for it. I was blessed. I had taught some people to do not everything, but most of the important things, because I spend a lot of time with my family, and I leave from time to time, not long periods of time, a week, 2 weeks at the most. So I had taught my guys to do certain things. And when I left, I was gone for a month the first time. I'd come back for a couple of days once my immune system came back up, and I'd come back for a week. And during the year of 2019, before COVID, I was here, I would say, a month out of 8 months of the year. Wow. Total, not together, but yeah. Total, I was here a month out of 8 months of the year. So my people had to know what to do. And like I say, I was blessed that I don't know, I think it was an accident that I had that forethought to teach, hey, you come here, let me show you how to do this. Come here, let me show you how to do that. Trying to circle back around to the original question, that really helped when COVID hit. We kind of were in that train of thought that everybody could run the pawn shop. It was a team effort.
Nice.
So we kind of, we shut everything down as far as retail goes, and took care of our loan customers. Make sure our loan base was good. Let everybody know that, we're going to give you some time if you need it. We're going to take care of everything. And the more knowledge we got about this virus, the better we got with it. We're still working with this, and I know everybody is. It's not just us. Yeah. But I feel like we had a head start just because of my situation.
Let me go back to that, if you don't mind. I want to talk about the leukemia real quick. What was it like, sitting at the doctor's office, or I don't know if you were sitting at the doctor's office, if you got a phone call, and they said, hey, Joey, this is the diagnosis?
It was really hard. I'd been to several doctors. I don't know. I think you spoke at 2019 Dixie. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Did you spoke there? I was there. I'm on the planning committee, and I was there. You and I talked quite a bit. Anyway, I had a little bit of what we thought was pneumonia then. I had been to several doctors, and it just never would go away. I would stop taking the steroids, and it would get worse. And finally, my regular doctor was watching my blood counts, and he said, I don't know anything about blood diseases and things, but there's something going on with your blood. So he sent me to a hematologist, which is a blood specialist, blood cancer specialist, actually, in Montgomery, Alabama. And he looked at my numbers, and he started this cancer facility. He was, the leading doctor in that area. And he called all my family in. I knew something was wrong when he called my family in. And he said, look, I really don't want to alarm you when I don't know all the facts. He said, but I've been doing this pretty much my whole life. And in looking at the numbers I have here, I just want to go ahead and prepare you. I think you have acute leukemia. And my mom has chronic leukemia, which they tell you with chronic leukemia, something else will kill you before the leukemia does. It's something you just have to deal with the rest of your life. So that was a really hard time, but we kind of built each other up. Hopefully it's not that bad, but let's prepare for the worst. He said, let's do a bone marrow biopsy to see. That'll be the only way to 100% know. He said, but I will tell you this, if you have acute leukemia, we don't treat it here. The only hospital in the state of Alabama that treats it is at UAB, because you have to, it's usually a university setting is where they treat it. So went home. The next day I started running a little bit of fever, having some issues with my breathing. And I called the doctor. I'm like, hey, something's going on. I feel like I'm getting worse. He said, well, I'll have your test results in the morning. He said, like I told you, be expecting acute leukemia, have your bag packed, because if I get that call, you need to be on your way to the hospital. And sure enough, the next morning at 7 o'clock, he gave me the call. It's a long morning with my kids, my wife, but we did like we're supposed to do. We headed to the hospital. UAB is a premier facility here in our state. They do a lot of research when it comes to any kind of cancer, but they do have a stem cell and leukemia department that does a lot of research, and they are a great facility. I was in awesome hands, but when I got to the hospital, I had got to the point where I really thought I was going to die that day. I was taking really short breaths because I don't know how much you know about leukemia, but with leukemia, it takes over your blood cells. So when the leukemia cells take over your blood cells, you're not moving any oxygen from your lungs to your organs, your heart, your brain, and everything. So I was breathing as hard as I could, but I wasn't replenishing with oxygen. I was breathing so hard that my ribs were hurting.
Wow.
And, they finally got me in a room. They, was giving me something for pain, but it was still hurting. And finally, the doctors came in and said, look, we're waiting for one more test, but the treatments overlap with the two different types of cancer. So we're going to start you on a treatment that has the two medicines. And if you need the third one, we'll throw it in later. He said, you're at a point you've got to have it. So they started me on chemo, and anybody that has experienced this, they pump in this poison into your body. They're gowned and masked and gloved and everything, like they're going to a toxic reaction, and then they're pumping this stuff into your veins. They pumped it into me. I finally got a little bit of relief with the pain medicine. I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning like somebody had poured a bucket of water over my whole body. I was soaking wet. But for the first time in weeks, I felt normal again.
Wow.
I felt good. They call it a chemo high. And it was amazing that they pump this poison in your body, and then all of a sudden you feel better. Now, I had some bad days after that, but that day I actually felt normal again.
What's amazing to me is how open you were through the process. I was following you on Facebook, and you were going Facebook Live and talking and sharing about everything, when a lot of people would be very private about it, right? They don't want to show the fact that they lost their hair. They don't want to show how they look while going through chemo. What made you pick up the phone, hit Facebook Live, and share to the world?
To be honest with you, y'all, my faith is a really big part of my life. And it was just something that I felt a calling to. You know, I've always been the tough guy and things like that. You know, I never want to show any emotion with anybody. And I just broke down in the hospital and I said, look, people need to see this. People out there worry about things like this. People out there don't know what's going on with things like this. I want to do what I can to show people, you know, that God is good. He's taking care of me through the worst part of my life. That even though I'm down in this hole and I'm fighting with everything that I've got, that it's not that bad. There's something better on the other side.
I love that, man. That's beautiful. And you inspired me. I'm sure that you've inspired many people who watch those videos to know that even in bad times, you know, that you held on to your faith so tight and knew that everything was going to be okay. I also want to kind of pivot into, you know, we talked about your family. Now you go back and then you have to tell your team, hey guys, I've got leukemia. I can't be in the store. How did they take it? And after we talk about that, I want to talk about what a pawnbroker needs to do to kind of prepare to, you know, if God forbid something like this happens, right? How do you prepare your team to be able to leave? And like you said, you were there a month out of 8 months or whatever it was. And so we'll talk about it. So you walked up to your team and you said, hey, this is going on. What was their reaction?
Well, first off, yeah, like I said, it was a 3-day turnaround. I went to the doctor and I was waiting on these results. So I knew something was fixing to happen. So I came in and at that time, I had one main team member, my store manager that was running things for me. We were a little shorthanded at the time, which was crazy. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do. I called her in and I said, look, I don't have a lot of details right now, but I'm pretty sure I've got leukemia. Pretty sure I'm fixing to have to leave. I'm going to have to go to the doctor. Tell me what I haven't showed you or what you know of that I haven't showed you that I can show you right now. So we talked about those things. And then, you know, I had another team member, one of the best salesmen that I've ever worked with, that had left me for a time and had just called me the day before. It was almost like it was a godsend. He called me the day before and just, you know, talked to me, and I could tell something was wrong with him, you know, that he wasn't real happy. So I called him and I said, look, I got some things going into my life. Well, first, I didn't go straight into that. I'm not that kind of guy. I asked him about his life, what was going on. We talked about the job, how happy he was. And he's like, look, I'm, you know, making good money, but I'm really not happy. He said, you know, I was happy at the pawn shop. So I said, you know, I don't want to rush things, but I just want to let you know what's going on in my life. I said, I think I'm going to be diagnosed with leukemia in the next couple of days. The doctor kind of put that out there. I said, how interested are you to come back to the pawn shop? He said, man, that's kind of the reason I reached out to you. I said, well, I don't want to try to twist your arm or force you into this. I said, but, you know, I'm going to leave, probably have to leave in the next couple of days. If you can make it happen, be great. If not, I understand, no pressure, but just, you know, put that in the back of your mind. And he called me back that night and he said, look, I want to be there.
Wow.
I'm a salesman. You know, I've got one deal working right now. When I close this deal, probably tomorrow, I'll be there the next day. And it just so happens that the day that I had to leave to go to the hospital, he came to work that morning. So that completed my team. You know, we were one man short. And like I said, this guy's one of the best salesmen I've ever worked with. And that completed my team when he came back in. And he runs the front end where my other person runs the back end. And it was just a smooth transition. Like I say, it's nothing less than just, you know, God looking out for me is all I can say.
Amazing. So let's talk about this real quick. When you were diagnosed, obviously, and you were talking about how before you were prepping your team because you would go on vacation and you knew that you didn't want to have control of everything, so that when you did leave, your team had control. Like we talked about that within the first 10 minutes of this interview. What are 3 things that pawnbrokers need to let go of control of in order to be able to go on vacation, in order to be able to, if God forbid, something happened with their health, that their team can pick it up and move forward?
Wow, that's a deep one. But yeah, my main person, my store manager, I had, shown her how to make bank deposits. She knew how to get money. She knew how to do things. But as far as, dealing with our accountant's office, dealing with the police department, dealing with, just hard situations, that's one of those are some of the key things that, somebody in your organization needs to know. It's not one, if you don't feel comfortable with one person knowing how to do everything in your store, you need a team of people that can do everything in your store. A lot of times it's overwhelming, especially when your associates, when your team members are focused on, they've got to take care of the customer. It's hard for them to just kind of take your job if it's forced upon them. So if you have a team of people that can do multiple things, I think that kind of helps. One of the things that that it showed me by having to be away is how competent my guys were. I hope that it was my training, but I can't take credit for all of it. I've tried over the years. I try to give people the ability to make their own decisions. For instance, one of our key things when we first start training a pawnbroker is, hey, when you come in here, you have the authority to give an 80% or a 20% discount on anything in the store. So don't start with 20%, work your sales process, but you don't have to come to me or come to a manager to get anything less than 20%. Work that deal. And that's just one little small example. And in our training processes, it's, and another thing that I always was really strict on is, if you're going to wear something in my store, it needs to have my logo on it. You need to be dressed the way I want you to dress. You need to talk to people. I had my definition of what professional looked like when you were dealing with a customer. I had my idea of what it looked like to do this or to do that. And when I came back, things had changed a little bit. Not everybody was wearing my logo on their stuff. And to start with, I said, but no, they've been doing well. They actually made more money the year that I was gone than they did the year before. I said, let me. Yeah, that was a sign, that hurt me. Yeah, that the old ego got its teeth knocked out from under it when I came back and I look at the financial. I'm like, wow, these guys made more money without me than they did with me. So I kind of take a step back and look and see how the customers react. And one of the things that hit me was a quote from Douglas Braswell. Back, we did a tour of Arkansas pawnbrokers when we had Dixie out there, and we went to Douglas's shop. And I don't know if you've been there, but if you haven't,
I was on the tour.
Great. That's right, you were on the tour. I remember now. Anyway, Douglas's pawn shop is phenomenal.
Beautiful.
And we walked around and we toured and we looked at all his stuff. And I think it was Ken Huddleston to ask a question about, how does this work? How do you maintain this? And Doug just kind of sat back, or Douglas, I'm sorry, he doesn't like to be called Doug. Douglas kind of kicks back and he said, we tried this same business model down the street. We bought some property down the street. We tried the same business model. It was just like this. And if you've never been there, it's everything. There's no dust anywhere. Everything is
just immaculate.
Immaculate. If you could imagine how you would want the best pawn shop to be, go to Doug's shop in West Little Rock. Anyway, Ken asked him, how do you maintain this? He said, we opened a shop down the street. We did it exactly like this. And we just weren't getting the business. People weren't bringing things in. People weren't getting loans. People weren't buying things. And we just kind of took a step back and looked. And this business model doesn't work everywhere. He said we had to go in, and Douglas's quote was, we had to go in and dirty it up a little bit. He said, and once we did that, people started coming in more. because they felt more comfortable. We learned that our customers in that area didn't feel comfortable at that style of pawn shop. He said, so we changed our outlook to meet our customers, and that's kind of what I've stepped back at to look at how things were run after I left. It changed a little bit, but it felt like it matched our customers better than what my outlet was. Now I still have our, the things that are non-negotiable standards
The
that we
core.
do.
Yeah.
But as far as the little details that I thought were so important, it's opened to my eyes to maybe those details should be changed to be more important to the customer than to myself.
It's amazing. As you're speaking, I have an idea that's kind of keeps coming around in my head, and that's trust. Right? You talked about trust in your faith. You talked about trust in your team. You talked about trust in your family to be there for you. And I feel that when you embody and you embrace trust, that's when you can, leave for a longer vacation, or if God forbid something happens to you, you need to be out for a longer period of time, with your family, with your team, in your faith, whatever that is. So I applaud you for, a lot of pawnbrokers are very skeptical and they're very defensive, and they don't trust their team. They have a team, but they don't trust them. They're like, oh, they can't do it like I can. Or, like the ego, they say, like, I'm the best pawnbroker in the store. But when you trust your team and you train them well, then you have more freedom. Then you have more time to be with your family. Then you have time, God forbid, if you have to take care of yourself medically, you can do that without stressing about, well, nobody has the bank accounts. Nobody has the vault code. Nobody has this. And you essentially have to shut the store down. So I applaud you for that, Joey, and I applaud you for being open and honest about what you went through and sharing. And like I said before, I know you inspired me, and you inspired lots of people. Is there any kind of like last things that you want to tell, the Pawn family who's listening to you today about trust, about being able to train your team efficiently, and about just having faith that things are going to be okay?
Yeah, if you don't want to work yourself to death in that pawn shop, have trust in your people. Be able to teach them how to be you. And like I said multiple times in this interview, if you don't want to train one person to do everything you do, train multiple people to